Hi, this is Kill9 at overclock.net. I'm doing the third of my review on IcyDock's Tough Armor lineup. We've got two drive accessories here. We've got a 5¼ inch and a 3½ inch. And I like to think of this as the third in a trilogy of reviews, kind of like a film where the first movie is sort of this novel concept and the second is building and building into what is eventually the third and final movie where you kind of pull out all the stops. In my first review, the accessory had three drives that you could fit into it, 2 hard drives and a CD-ROM or CD burner. The second was another 5¼ inch device that you could fit 4 2½ inch hard disk drives into, as well as kind of a sibling that fit into a 3½ inch form factor that you could put a single drive into. And now we're kind of going the full distance. We have a 5¼ inch device that you can put 6 2½ inch hard disk drives into, and a sibling where you can put 2 2½ inch drives into it. I did the previous review in a pair just because the trays are interchangeable, and that's the case here as well. You've got these thinner trays, and I think that if you were in the market for a drive cage like these two, they would fit best together just because you can swap the trays in and out among each other. So thought I'd just do a quick unboxing, show you what you're getting if you're interested in something like this, and we'll do a more thorough review written in the reviews section. So out here we got this nice color packaging. I'd kind of foresee this being something that they would sell on a shelf, not just to OEMs, but say at a Fry's or something. It looks nice and it gives you a good idea of what you're buying. This opening here is about as good as anything. I got an instruction manual. And really it's not rocket science putting this together, but it gives you an idea. Got the actual unit, we'll look at that in a sec. Looks like you got Molex, because that's what's on the back here. A good shot of that. SATA to Molex. Kind of confused a little bit as to why they didn't just use Molex from the start. You got your screws to install the different drives, and just a silica packet. Goes over to the side. So here's the unit itself. It feels pretty solid, like all their units have. On the back, you've got the small 40mm fan to pull some air through. Got a nice switch that you can use to turn off the fan if you want. I would assume that if you're going to slap some solid-state drives in here, you don't really need to have the fan on at all and just introduce that noise. You've got your 3 SATA data ports over here, and then you got 2 Molexes to power everything. Up at the top, just a small diagram of, it's kind of hard to see that, where everything is and what port goes to where on the front. And then here's kind of the business end of it. You've got the cages, and those things, they just practically jump out. I will say that these are quite a bit thinner than the previous device that I reviewed, the MB994. And it really needs to be to fit these drives in here. And also what's interesting is the drive trays don't even have a top. They've kind of got this plastic guard here. This wouldn't be, you just unscrew these screws here and pull this plastic off, and the drive would just sit on this flat tray. I noticed that with my M4 solid state drive, it didn't actually fit all that well into the cage. The cage had this top cover that would actually, it wasn't deep enough really for the drive, so it kind of scraped the back of the casing to get it in. Doesn't seem like that would be the problem with something like this. Now, also note, because this is so much thinner, you won't be able to use anything thicker than 9½ drive. If you have an older 15mm drive, I know that Seagate makes a 2½ inch form factor green drive that is 15mm. You could still pick that up on Newegg. That would not fit into a cage like this. It needs to be a 7mm or a 9½ form factor. I have a Samsung 830 and a Crucial M4, and both of those would fit the bill with that, with this tray. And I know that those are pretty popular solid-state drives, so just keep that in mind. Know what kind of hardware you've got, and you should be fine. It's got a warning on the side, basically saying, use our screws, we provided them for a reason, and I think mostly that's because the tolerances are kind of tight on here. There's not a lot of room between the tray itself and this metal housing, so if it's too long, it may go into the tray and prevent it from sliding out, or even worse, it goes into your nice solid-state drive. So then over here, we've got the second device, the MB992SK-B. One of the things that differentiates it from the previous device we looked at is the fact that it's got a locking mechanism. So you can put this into, say a machine that a customer or a client's using, and if you don't want them to be able to pull those drives out, you can lock it and get a little bit of security. Opening this up. So included is your mounting screws again, and then your security keys, a pair of those. You got some screws for the actual trays themselves. Again, some pretty minimal instructions. It's not too hard to get these going. And then you've got your trays. So I had opened this previously and pulled off this back housing so you can kind of see how that works. It's just a pretty simple design. It's got these kind of pieces of metal to keep it from rattling when it's if you're using a rotational hard drive. And then it'd be difficult to see this from here, but it's basically just you got a back plane at the far end of the cage that the drives fit into, and it seems to work pretty well. So in the back, a little bit simpler interface. You got your SATA power, SATA data, and then your second SATA data. You're able to run off just this single power connection, which is nice. Up at the top, you've got some grating, presumably for dissipating heat, but in our previous test, there isn't a whole lot of heat. That's going to be a problem even with rotational hard drives. The fact that this is all metal just means it's basically acting as a giant heat sink. And at the bottom of this tray, this is true for the 994 trays, it's got a piece of plastic that runs up to the front, and that's how you get your activity lights. Now, I did find that the Samsung did not actually, for whatever reason, output that signal, so it didn't do anything but show power. But this is kind of a nice feature, and it's cool how they did that. There's a LED on the back plane that just shines its light is passed through using this piece of plastic. So kind of a cool feature there. But yeah, that is the two devices we'll be looking at today, and I'll give you a little bit more detail in the written review. Thanks.